Hey, what's happening, YouTubers? Welcome back to the permission statement. So, here I am. I just did a video at Benessere, beautiful winery. And as I was talking about the child cancer rates and some of my last videos, in my, how do you say, semi not so positive experience with the health department in Napa and the county supervisors and the deputy ag commissioner, all the way up to, I don't know, maybe my senator. So anybody can Google this. The highest child cancer rates in the state of California was Napa County. I think Sonoma might have been number 3, somewhere in there. And there was another county, I think it's Central California. But the common denominator is agriculture. I mean, hey, let's face it. Anybody that tries to say herbicides, fungicides, pesticides isn't going to have a detrimental impact. Check out the study in Bordeaux, France. And they're expanding that study to about 7,000 people, like I was saying, as opposed to 700 or 7,500. They're going to go like 7,500. Because the toxicity levels from the hair samples of people who live there were like 14 times more than what other people's were who don't live in the wine region. So, ergo, their premise is that people that live near or work in or near the wine industry has, higher toxicity levels. So it's imperative, especially to protect children and elderly folks and people's lives in general, that these organic practices be taken into consideration. Less toxic means, which I know they're working towards it, but it was very disappointing to hear at the end of sitting down for 45 minutes roughly with the deputy ag commissioner, my son, and his assistant, that he says at the end of the day, it's about yield. And they feel they can get, or they know they can get, which has kind of been called in, has been refuted by, I think, Frog's Leap. If you look into that documentary, Children of the Vine, where they said that they've been using organic practices and it doesn't cost much more, or maybe they're just saying it doesn't cost much more, but maybe that you'll get less yield. But I'd like to see the math on that to show that they get less of a yield. But what he's saying is that they sell X amount per ton, and that if they get more yield with the toxic stuff, they're going to use the toxic stuff. So they're saying that the dollar value means more than the health of the people who live here. That's what that translates to. So I was saying, then why don't they just come forward and say that? Why don't you put that in the ag report that, hey, despite what it may do to the people, the trade-off, it's more important for them to make more money. Because in the Ag 2022 Ag Report, it talks about all the yields and this and that of each grape, and it cites specifically that they are securing the financial health. They're protecting the financial health of the valley. But look in there and try to see what they're doing to protect the actual physical health of the people. And if Napa County had the highest child cancer rate in 2016, 21 per 100,000, the highest per capita in the state of California, why did they stop counting? And when you talk to the health department, they try to say, oh, it was really complicated and it's really hard to get those numbers. And that just doesn't make no sense, because all these other less fortunate counties in California, they put out the math, they put the numbers out there, despite what it is, whether it's negative or positive. And it really gives the feeling that they weren't expecting that kind of number. And then when they got it, they just like, oh, shoot, this isn't a good look for us, so let's just stop counting. Because if you got the highest fucking child cancer rate in the state of California, wouldn't you think that would be front and center, mission critical? Like, we need to start tracking this. We need to start doing our thing, right? So this sign is important. So if you come here to Napa, please look for Napa Green Certified, or ask them if you're calling, making the reservations, call them, ask them if they're Napa Certified Green. Sometimes they're not certified yet, but they've already applied, and there's a standard that has to be met, and it has to be met for a certain amount of time, which I'll go make some videos to find out what those standards are and how that works, because I'm curious myself. So there's Napa Green and there's CCOF, which is California Certified Organic. Some of them have both of them, so that's even better. But if you're calling and they don't have it and they're not already in the transition or working towards it, because it takes about 4 years for that soil to go from, not that this soil is toxic, but if you've been using chemical and toxic, carcinogens, and putting it in the soil and all that, it takes 4 years to detoxify that soil. So there's a time frame that has to start. And so if they haven't even started that process, maybe ask them why. Like, hey, don't y'all care about them kids? Don't you care about them child cancer rates? And I've seen that it's gone down. But I had to go to San Francisco to the oncology department. I went to the ag commissioner here. And I'm going to shoot you all a video at my son's school so you can see where my position came from. And I'll tell you how far back when I started asking questions, which was 2016, before the law was put into place. Then when the law was put into place, well, I asked questions on the day I did the walkthrough with my son's principal. And when you see how close the vines are, where I'm standing right here to the vineyards is further away than the vineyards are from my son's playground. Well, the playground that he was at when I was asking the questions. Let me walk this from here to here. I'd say maybe even here is how close the vineyards are to the kids' playground at the elementary school. And it's one of the best schools in Napa. But it begs the question. I didn't see any CCOF, any Napa Green. And I asked, when do they spray and what do they spray? And they kind of gave me this laissez-faire, like, oh, well, they kind of let us know. And they say they're only going to do it on the weekends. And like no enforcement, no surety. And then when I asked about the logbook, and they're supposed to have an emergency reaction plan put in place because it's happened in other places in California where people got doused with that shit. You know what I mean? A whole birthday party or something happened in Central California. And I'll go into details about that story because it's an abhorrent nightmare what happened. Look into the janitor or the custodian at Benicia, at the school in Benicia, which was one of the very first glyphosate cases. And so when I'm sitting there talking to the deputy ag commissioner of Napa County, and he tries to tell me that, glyphosate, there's studies that say that it doesn't cause cancer. And I said, well, cite those studies in writing. Put those in writing. And no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to defer over to the health department. Then don't say that shit. That guy got doused one time at that custodian in Benicia, and he ended up getting Hodgkin's lymphoma. Yeah, it was a whole tank that blew up on him or whatever. But still, he only got hit with it one time. And it cost him his life. So for somebody to sit there and try to blow smoke up my ass and try to say that man, come on, I was in the Conservation Corps. We had to put on full suits to spray that stuff. And so for him to try to say, oh, well, there's studies that say this and say that. So I went to the National Institute of Health. I went to the oncology department, and I went to the health department in Napa. They had one person call me maybe once, and that was it. The director of the health department, nobody would respond. Never got to sit down with my senator, who also grows grapes, who's also a vintner. And I gotta find out where he grows and if he's one of the people that's using the non-toxic or the toxic practices. Shout out to Gavin Newsom. I gotta say, hey, Plump Jack and Odette, they use organic practices, because I would be highly disappointed if the governor of my state was growing here and wasn't doing something to protect the people here. So it begs the question, is my senator who grows grapes, I don't know if Mike Thompson grows grapes, but if they are they using those toxic? Are they using the non-toxic practice? I would like to know, because that means something to me, because that speaks more than any of the words they would have to say. If they're partaking in the toxicity of the people that live here, then that lets me know everything I need to know. So it begs the question. Everywhere I went, it felt like I got smoke blown up my ass, or they just didn't really want to deal with the issue, which is it's kind of hard to take as a parent, because you're just asking like, hey man, I just need to know. And would you guys be willing to support digging further into this? Let's check the toxicity of people that live here in the valley so that we know. And if you guys are doing this transition, it would be a measurable outcome. And it just seemed like they didn't want to deal with it. They didn't want to, because, it is what it is. But if you are coming, please look for these signs. Call, ask them if they have it. And you'll see these all up and down the valley. Those of y'all who are wine tasting, a lot of people don't know what it means. And I do my best to inform people about it and how good it makes me feel to see that people are doing that. But I got some videos to show y'all. I've seen these people spraying, and I've been sprayed 3 times. One of which my son was in the car, and that shit pissed me off. And when I told the deputy ag commissioner, he didn't even ask me where or when or nothing. And so, supposedly he says they cite people, but this is the state of California, and we are the only state in the country that tracks all of our pesticides. So if there's a will, there's a way. But why ain't there a will?